Hi y'all. So for this presentation, we're going to be chatting about the senior cycle, specifically the Leaving Certificate and University admission process. So from this presentation, I hope that y'all are able to gain a basic understanding of the Irish education system. We're going to do a quick overview of where the Leaving Certificate falls in the Irish education system. We're going to do Leaving Certificate 101. What is a Leaving Certificate? What does it mean? And then where like grading, points, etc. And then finally, we're going to end with a comparative piece of the Leaving Certificate admission requirements versus those requirements to the three institutions that I chose in Ireland that they require of the United States. So those are the three pieces that we're going to be going over. First of all, the Irish education system and how does it work? Where does the Leaving Certificate enter in here? So we first are going to be talking about, and as my colleagues have talked about, we have primary or first level education mandated for individuals in Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, from 6 to age 16. Then we enter into second level education. This is comprised of the junior and senior cycle. There is an optional transition year that is given between the junior and senior cycle, which I thought was very interesting, especially when we're talking about the leaving certification. Or the leaving certificate exam, pardon me, because the transition year really allows for the students between their junior and senior cycle being 12 to 15 years old, senior cycle being that 15 to 20 or 18-ish age range, to really decide what they would like to do before they have to sit for the leaving certification exam. And as we get into the three different types, I think that that's something that we need to keep in mind, as it's very relevant as we go through the three different types to have that transition year for these students, for them to be able to really figure out what they would like to do. And then we get into our third level education, which would primarily be our institutions of higher education, or choosing to go out and be a part of the working world. Again, that leaving certificate exam takes place after the senior cycle. So keeping that in mind, it's between second level and third level education. Comparable in the United States possibly to an ACT or SAT, which we'll see in the presentation as well. So, leaving certificate. Let's talk specifics, shall we? There are three different types of leaving certificates. So again, tying back to that transition year and why it's so important. Ireland and its establishment has really responded to the changing work and business environment and has given its students an opportunity to not necessarily have to go into higher education if they're fit for something else. So the established leaving certificate is the most common. This is the quote unquote admission to university or that higher education piece. So we'll be talking a lot about that later on. Leaving certificate or for vocational programs. So this is very much a hands-on arts, construction, engineering piece, again in response to that working climate. And then the leaving certificate applied is for these students, those students who may not want to go right into higher education. They want to go right into adult life after this leaving certificate and this program. So we'll get more into that and what each of these entails right now. So first talking about the Leaving Certification Vocational Program. So this was established in 1994. Students have to be at least 16 years old to sit for this examination. They are comprised of 5 different subject requirements. As we go through, you'll see that there are multiple different subjects that these students are able to pull from and choose from based on their interests, which I think is super interesting. And again, where that transition year can be so beneficial. What are you really interested in being able to go from there and choose your subjects? Again, based very much on that vocational aspect. Again, what that means is, and what are some specialist groupings that were identified were construction studies, physics, agricultural sciences, chemistry, home economics, accounting, business economics, physics, biology, art and design, and craft work. So really those, again, hands-on vocational programs. Something to note is that there are, in addition to the 5 subject areas, there is also links modules that are preparing these students for preparation for the world of work as well as enterprise education. And I've linked the specific requirements. So this is a really awesome PDF that gives you more details about the leaving certification for vocational programs here. I don't have time to go through it all, although I think it is very interesting that it is something that these students are allowed to opt for. So these are the scores. So these are the certifications for the scores if these students are sitting for this examination, what they need to get, the point values they need to obtain to be able to be distinction merit or to be able to pass the leaving certification for vocational programs. So some more info there for you as well. Leaving certificate applied. Established in 1995, again, in response to that working environment that Ireland developed. Again, 16 years of age to be able to sit for this examination. It's a 2-year integrated program. So very much tied into getting acclimated into the real world. Vocational preparation, education, and general education are all pieces of it. This is being more pushed for those individuals in Ireland that may not need higher education. So those are maybe heading into a field that they're passionate about that may not necessarily need that higher education degree. So some of those that were listed were active leisure studies, agriculture and horticulture, childcare, community care, craft and design, graphics design, construction studies, again, engineering, hair and beauty, hotel catering and tourism, administration and customer care, technology, information technology, and then communications technology. So those are some of the fields. Thought it was pretty interesting that tourism was thrown in there, being an event management person. That they don't really think that you need a higher degree for those kinds of things in Ireland. So they would rather you get that applied experience right away. Something that's also to note about the Leaving Certificate Applied is that these individuals will get more practice in the working world as they move forward. So it's a pretty good option as well, that with that 2-year transition. Also get work as we talk about the holistic development of students, giving them a transition to enter into the world at a little bit older of an age. So they're entering into the world at maybe 18, 19 with some experience rather than 16 right out of their senior cycle. So pretty interesting. And then finally, the Leaving Certificate Established, which is what I'm going to spend the rest of my time talking about. It is the most popular and what we would kind of draw to in the United States as an ACT or kind of our ACT admission requirements for higher education. So, introduced in 1924, students that sit for this exam are typically 17 to 18 years old, 5 to 6 years out of that primary or first level education experience. There's a requirement of 6 subjects that students have to choose from. But most students do choose to take 7, and you'll see as we get into our admission requirements why they would maybe want to choose 7 rather than 6. And then, again, as I mentioned, it's utilized for admission into institutions of higher education. It is a fee-based exam. Which is interesting. So if students want to take it for one subject, it's 116 euros, 2 subjects, it's 211 euros, and 3+ subjects, it's 326 euros. And it also has a 1450 euro charge to obtain the results for these students. So pretty interesting there. As my colleagues have also mentioned, and we've also realized Ireland doesn't really charge students for higher education. So when we get down to it, it's really not as costly as the United States, but just thought it was interesting that those were fee-based. Here is an example of the subjects that are featured in the Leaving Certification examination. So pretty interesting that they're able to choose what level they want to take the subject at, whether it's foundation, high, ordinary, or higher. So 3 different levels that they can take these classes at, and they can choose whichever classes they want. They do have to have, there are 4 stipulations that they have to abide by. So you can either choose physics or chemistry, economics or agricultural economics, classical studies or Latin, and then classical studies or ancient Greek. But those are really the only stipulations that are placed on choosing these subject areas. Students will find that aligning with their institutions of higher education may be more advantageous to take a wider variety of classes, but pretty interesting that they can choose their own rather than being forced to take university programs as we may know it. It really aligns more with what they're interested in. And then here is the grading scale. This was updated in 2017, so it was pretty interesting for me to go through it and confusing because it was just updated in 2017, so it was kind of hard as we get into my comparative piece. There's a lot of different lingo being thrown around as the transitions are being made as it's only a year old. But you'll see here that the level 1 is the highest, going down to level 8, and these are their percentages. So it'll make more sense as we move into the comparative piece. So we'll get into the comparative piece right now. So I chose to look at 3 institutions: Trinity College, University of College in Dublin, and then University of Limerick. So starting with Trinity College, what I would say is the most competitive or the highest requirements for admission would be in that of Trinity College. So students must have, for the Leaving Certificate, they must have at least 6 recognized subjects by Trinity College, minimum grades of a higher level at the 50 to 60 percentile or above in all 6 of their subjects. And in all 6 subjects must include a pass in English and a pass in math, or a pass in Latin and a pass in a subject other than a language. So the emphasis on English and math or Irish and math is very prevalent, as we'll see. And then they also have to have an H5 or above on the university matriculation exam. Noted here, Trinity College is the only college that does require, out of these 3 anyway, that requires a matriculation exam, and it is based off of the New and Old Testament or geology. So I thought that was pretty interesting. In the United States, the high school requirements are, the GPA requirement wasn't listed, but the ACT and SAT scores were. So the SAT scores, students must have a minimum of 1290 and also a minimum of 500 in any of the 2 critical reading, math, and writing sections, or a 29 composite on your ACT. Getting into University College Dublin, so they must have, again, at least 6 recognized subject areas. This also, again, tying back into when these students are sitting for the Leaving Certificate exam, they need to have those necessary for their desired program that they're entering into as they get into University College of Dublin. So pretty interesting there. Minimum grade of H5, so 50 to 60% in 2 subjects, or a minimum grade and at the higher level, at the highest level of coursework, or a 30 to 40% or in the 4 remaining subjects, 30 to 40 percentile at the higher level. 3.0 on a 4.0 scale, if we're looking at the United States requirements, a 1500 on the based on the old SAT, 1090 on the new ACT, and a 22 ACT. For the more competitive programs, you'll see that those will increase. And then I thought it was also interesting that the University of College Dublin accepts the Common App. So pretty interesting there. And then finally, the University of Limerick. Again, that presentation of at least 6 recognized subjects, including those necessary for their desired program. Minimum grade of 50 to 60% in 2 subjects, or these students are allowed to take that ordinary level, which wasn't identified at our other institutions, and they're able to score in that 40 to 50th percentile in 4 remaining subjects, or they're able to score between 30 and 40% in 4 subjects at that higher level. United States requirements, 3.0 on a 4.0 scale, and they must take English, language, and math, 1240 SAT or SAT score with a 530 in math and 480 in critical reading and writing, and then a 25 for their ACT. So again, pretty comparative. I kind of sped through it at the end, but here are my references, and then have lots of more information for y'all on my one pager, and lots of those links. Feel free to click on them. See you all in country very soon. So excited!